My name is Sophia Bennett. I'm 25 years old. Nobody came to my master's graduation. Not my mom, my dad, or my sister. When they called my name, I smiled for the cameras, but the only thing I could see was that empty row where they were supposed to be. The silence from them lasted for 3 days. Then my phone buzzed. It was my mom. Need $2,100 for your sister's sweet 16. No congratulations. Not a single "I'm proud of you," just a demand. My reply was simple. I sent her $1 with a message. Congrats. Then I went into my building's app and revoked their key access to my apartment. That was the day I stopped being their safety net. Before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. All my life, I was the invisible daughter, the fixer, the provider, the silent achiever. My family operated like a small company where I was the unpaid, on-call intern, and my sister was the celebrity CEO. My mom, Linda, lived for social appearances. Her happiness was measured in Facebook likes and the envy of her neighbors in our quiet Littleton suburb. She had a smile that could charm a stranger and a tone that could cut glass when used on me. My dad, Mark, was a ghost in his own home. He was a good man, I think, but his goodness was passive. He lived to avoid confrontation, which meant he lived to agree with my mother. His silence was her biggest weapon. And then there was Ava, my little sister. 4 years younger, she was their golden child, a walking Instagram story of everything I was never allowed to be. While I was taught to be responsible, Ava was taught to be adored. While I learned to save, she learned to spend. We were raised in the same house, by the same people, but we grew up in different worlds. I learned my role early. I was 16 when I got my first car, a beat-up 2004 Honda Civic I bought with 2 years of savings from my job at the local diner. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I washed it every weekend, and the Pine Tree air freshener always smelled like freedom. 3 weeks after I got my license, Ava needed a ride to the mall. I was at work, so Mom gave her my keys. "Just be careful," I texted Ava. She replied with a heart emoji. An hour later, Mom called me, her voice tight. "Sophia, you need to come home. There's been an incident." Ava had tried to squeeze my Honda into a compact spot and scraped the entire passenger side against a concrete pillar. The gash was deep, a long, ugly scar from headlight to taillight. Ava was crying on the front lawn when I pulled up in my manager's car, not because she was hurt, but because she was scared of being in trouble. My mom wrapped an arm around her. "It's okay, sweetie. It's just a car." Then she turned to me. The warmth in her eyes vanished. "Sophia, you should have parked it in an easier spot in the garage this morning. You know your sister is still a new driver." I just stared at her. "I parked where you told me to park. She shouldn't have been driving my car without me." "Don't be selfish," Mom snapped. "Family helps each other out. We'll get an estimate." We never got an estimate. I got one. It was $900. I asked my dad if he could help. He shifted his feet, looked at the floor, and said, "Your mother thinks it would be a good life lesson for you to handle it." So I did. I picked up extra shifts for 3 months and paid for the repair myself. I drove a scarred car while Ava got a brand new Jetta for her 16th birthday 2 months later. Mom posted a picture of it on Facebook, covered in a giant red bow. The caption read, "Our princess gets her chariot. So proud of this responsible young woman." Over 300 people liked it. That was the pattern. My achievements were expected. Hers were celebrated. I worked 30 hours a week through high school to save for college. That money often got borrowed for family emergencies. 1 month it was for a new water heater. Another, it was for Ava's summer cheerleading camp. The money was never paid back. It was absorbed into the family budget, a budget that always seemed to prioritize what Ava wanted over what I needed. When it was time for college applications, I did it all myself. I spent nights writing essays and filling out financial aid forms at the kitchen table. My parents' only contribution was to complain about finding their old tax documents. When I got a full academic scholarship to the University of Denver, my mom announced it at a neighborhood barbecue. "Sophia is so brilliant," she told everyone, beaming. "We are so proud to have paid for her education." I remember standing there, holding a plate of potato salad, feeling my face burn. I wanted to scream. I paid for it. My work, my grades, my exhaustion paid for it. But I just smiled. In our family, the truth was less important than the story. I moved into my dorm room with 2 suitcases and a box of books. There was no tearful goodbye. My dad helped carry my mini fridge up the stairs, and my mom spent the whole time pointing out how much nicer another girl's room was. "Look, Ava," she said, taking a picture on her phone. "This is the comforter you should get when you go to college." They left before I had even made my bed. For the next 4 years, I was the family ATM and therapist. Calls from home were never to ask how I was. They were to ask for $100 to fix the dishwasher, or to complain about Ava's latest drama with her boyfriend, or to have me edit Dad's work emails. I was their backup plan, the reliable engine that kept the family car running while everyone else enjoyed the ride. I majored in business for my undergrad, then got into a competitive master's program for data analytics. I worked 2 part-time jobs and took on freelance projects to pay for my rent and tuition. I was tired all the time, a deep-in-your-bones tired that coffee couldn't fix. But I was driven by a quiet, desperate hope. If I achieved something big enough, something undeniable, they would finally have to see me. A master's degree, a real career. Maybe that would be enough. By the time I turned 25, I had learned that in my family, love had an invoice. Every "I love you" was a down payment on a future request. Every bit of praise was a line of credit they expected to use later. I just didn't realize how high the interest rate had become. That May morning shimmered with sunlight, the kind of perfect Colorado day that feels like a promise. I woke up feeling a nervous flutter in my chest. It was the good kind of nervous, the kind that felt like hope. Today was the day, after 2 years of late nights, endless coding, and statistical models that made my head spin, I was finally graduating, Master of Science in Data Analytics. It sounded important. It felt important. I put on my black robe, the fabric stiff and new. I adjusted the cap on my head, making sure the tassel was on the correct side. I looked at myself in the mirror. The girl staring back looked tired, but she also looked proud. I took a selfie and sent it to the family group chat. Ready to go. See you guys soon. So excited. My dad replied with a thumbs up emoji. Mom and Ava didn't reply at all. I'd told them about this day for months. I'd sent the invitation, the parking pass, the link to the live stream from my grandmother in Florida. I'd reserved 4 seats in the family section. My mom had promised they would be there. Of course, sweetie, she'd said over the phone a week earlier. We wouldn't miss it for the world. I already picked out my outfit. Driving to the stadium, I let myself imagine it. I pictured them in the stands. My dad holding the camera, my mom waving, maybe even Ava looking up from her phone for a second to cheer. I imagined the hugs afterward, the "we're so proud of you" that I had been working my entire life to hear. It felt so close, so real. The hope was a warm, bright thing inside me. I found my spot in the long line of graduates, a sea of black robes and buzzing excitement. I scanned the massive crowd, searching for them. It was like a real-life Where's Waldo, but the only prize was a feeling of belonging. The sun was bright, making me squint. Rows and rows of parents, grandparents, and siblings, all holding balloons and flowers, their faces turned toward the stage. I looked for my dad's graying hair, my mom's signature blonde bob, Ava's bright pink jacket. Nothing. The ceremony started. The speeches were long, full of words like future and potential. All I could think about was the empty seats. My phone was tucked into a pocket in my robe. I fought the urge to check it. Maybe they were just running late. Denver traffic was terrible. That had to be it. They started calling names. With each name, a roar would erupt from a different section of the stadium. A family would stand up, screaming and waving. A graduate would beam, blowing a kiss to their people. It was a beautiful rhythm of love and recognition, and I was completely outside of it. My row started to file toward the stage. My heart was pounding now, a frantic, painful drum against my ribs. I did one last desperate scan of the crowd. Section 112, Row G, seats 4 through 7. Empty. Not just empty of my family, but completely, glaringly empty. They hadn't even given the tickets away. Sophia Bennett. My name echoed through the stadium speakers. A smattering of polite applause rippled through the air from strangers. My professors clapped. A few friends from my cohort whooped, but from Section 112 there was only silence. I walked across the stage. The lights were blinding. I shook the dean's hand, took the diploma holder, and turned to the camera. I smiled. It was the hardest smile of my life. My cheeks felt like stone. I tried to make my eyes look bright, but I knew they were hollow. I could feel the emptiness of that row like a physical weight on my chest. It burned into my memory, a monument to every ignored effort, every unreturned call, every time I was second best. After the ceremony, the field flooded with families. It was a beautiful chaos of hugs, tears, and flowers. Graduates were lifted into the air by their fathers, kissed by their mothers, mobbed by their siblings. I stood alone in my black robe, holding a piece of paper that suddenly felt worthless. My friend Chloe came over, her family trailing behind her. "Soph, you were amazing. Where's your family?" My parents wanted to say hi. "Oh," I said, my voice sounding distant. "They got stuck in traffic. A big accident on the I-25. They feel terrible. The lie came out so easily. I had been making excuses for them my whole life. Chloe gave me a sympathetic look. That's awful. Well, we're heading to dinner. You should come. I wanted to. God, I wanted to go and pretend I was part of her happy, normal family. But I couldn't. The performance was over. I didn't have the energy to fake another smile. Thanks, but I'm just going to head home. I'm pretty exhausted. I gave her a quick hug and walked away, weaving through the happy crowds. The walk to my car felt a mile long. Each happy family I passed was another small cut. When I drove home that night, the diploma lay beside me on the passenger seat. It was supposed to be my trophy, my proof of worth. But in the quiet of my car, it just looked like paper. The hope I'd felt that morning had curdled into a cold, hard certainty. They weren't stuck in traffic. They hadn't forgotten. They just hadn't cared enough to show up. I promised myself one thing as the city lights blurred past my window. I would never again beg for their attention. I would never again arrange my life around the hope of their approval. The empty seats had broken the illusion. There was nothing left to wait for. The 3 days after graduation were quiet. I spent them building a new kind of life, one that didn't revolve around a 4-hour drive to Littleton for Sunday dinner or answering frantic calls about my sister's drama. I unpacked the last of my boxes in my small Denver apartment. I updated my LinkedIn profile. I bought a new plant, a snake plant, because someone told me they were impossible to kill. I needed something in my life that would thrive on neglect. For the first time, silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like peace. I woke up when I wanted, made coffee, and sat on my tiny balcony, watching the city come to life. There was no pressure, no expectation, no one to please but myself. It was a fragile peace, but it was mine. I was starting to believe I could get used to it. Then, on the 3rd day, my phone lit up on the kitchen counter. It buzzed once, a harsh, demanding sound in the quiet apartment. I saw my mother's name on the screen. For a split second, my heart jumped. Maybe this was it. The apology. The explanation. We're so sorry we missed it, Soph. Something came up, but we are so proud of you. I picked up the phone. The message was short. Need $2,100 for your sister's sweet 16. No punctuation. No greeting. No mention of my graduation. It wasn't a request. It was an invoice. A transaction. As if I were a bank and they were making a withdrawal. I stared at the screen for a long time. I read the words over and over, letting them sink in. The shock came first, a cold wave that washed over me. Then came the pain, a familiar dull ache in my chest. They hadn't just forgotten my graduation. They had erased it. My biggest accomplishment was just a minor inconvenience, an event that had the nerve to happen right before they needed money. I thought about all the sacrifices I'd made, the 16-hour days of studying and working, the holidays I'd spent alone in the library, the cheap instant noodles I ate so I could save every extra dollar. I had done it all with their faces in my mind, hoping to earn a crumb of the pride they gave Ava so freely. And this was my reward, a bill for her party. The tears I had held back at the stadium started to fall. They weren't loud, sobbing tears. They were quiet, hot tears of absolute finality. This was who they were. This was who they would always be. The illusion I had clung to for 25 years shattered completely. I let myself cry for a few minutes. I mourned the family I wished I had. I mourned the girl who had tried so hard to be worthy of them. And when the tears stopped, something else took their place. A cold, clear resolve. I thought about ignoring the text. I thought about sending a long, angry message, listing out every single grievance I had stored up for years. But I knew it would be pointless. Arguing with my mother was like throwing rocks into the ocean. The ocean always wins. She would twist my words, call me ungrateful, and somehow make this my fault. So I chose a different path. I opened my banking app. My hands were perfectly steady. I went to the transfer page and typed in my mother's phone number. For the amount, I entered $1. In the memo line, I typed a single word, congrats, then I hit send. It was a small act, but it felt monumental. It was a declaration of independence. It said, I see you. I understand the terms of this relationship, and I no longer agree to them. The relief was immediate and overwhelming. A weight I didn't even realize I was carrying lifted off my shoulders. I wasn't their backup plan anymore. I wasn't their ATM. I was just me. Then I took the next step. My apartment building used a digital key system managed by an app on my phone. My parents had a shared guest key for emergencies. I opened the app, found their names on the access list, and swiped left. A confirmation message popped up. Are you sure you want to delete this key? I pressed confirm without a moment of hesitation. A small red icon appeared. Access revoked. It wasn't an act of revenge. It was an act of survival. It was relief. For the first time in my life, I had locked a door they couldn't walk through. As I put my phone down, The silence in my apartment felt different. It wasn't empty anymore. It was sacred. 2 days later, the quiet was broken by a knock on my door. It wasn't a friendly knock from a neighbor. It was firm, rehearsed, and official. 3 sharp raps that meant business. My heart jumped into my throat. I wasn't expecting anyone. I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. My blood went cold. 2 uniformed police officers stood in the hallway. They were looking at my door number, then at a notepad in their hands. My mind raced. What could they possibly want? Was there a problem in the building? Was it about my car? I took a deep breath, trying to calm the irrational panic rising in my chest, and opened the door. The taller of the 2 officers gave me a polite, professional smile. Miss Sophia Bennett? Yes? My voice was barely a whisper. I'm Officer Miller, and this is Officer Reed, he said, gesturing to his partner. We received a wellness check request for this address. Is it okay if we come in for a moment? A wellness check? I was completely bewildered. A what? Who called? Your mother, Linda Bennett, Officer Miller said, his eyes scanning my face with a practiced neutrality. She called us. She said you've been acting erratically and she was concerned you might harm yourself. The words hit me like a physical blow. I blinked, trying to process the sheer audacity of it. Erratic? Harm myself? The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. The $1 transfer. The deleted key. This wasn't concern. This was retaliation. This was her way of reminding me who was in control. I stepped back from the door, my shock turning into a slow-burning anger. Because I changed my locks? The question came out before I could stop it. Officer Miller's expression didn't change, but I saw a flicker of understanding in his eyes. He glanced past me into my tidy living room. My framed diploma, the one I'd picked up from the frame shop yesterday, was leaning against the wall, waiting to be hung. My laptop was open on the coffee table, a spreadsheet for a job application on the screen. A half-full mug of coffee sat beside it. The apartment was clean, quiet, and sane. You look pretty stable to me, he said softly. His partner, Officer Reed, a woman with a kind face, nodded in agreement. Ma'am, would you mind if we just asked you a few standard questions? We have to file a report. I let them in. They stood awkwardly in my entryway while I leaned against the kitchen counter, my arms crossed over my chest. They asked if I felt depressed. They asked if I had any thoughts of self-harm. They asked if I had anyone I could talk to. I answered each question calmly and rationally. No. Yes, I have friends. My voice was steady, but inside I was shaking. My own mother had weaponized my mental health. She had used the police as her personal army to punish me for setting a boundary. She wasn't worried about me. She was worried she had lost access to me. The cruelty of it was breathtaking. After a few minutes, Officer Miller closed his notepad. Okay, Miss Bennett, it's clear to us that you're fine. We'll file the report and let your mother know we made contact. They turned to leave, but at the door, Officer Reed paused. She looked at me with a genuine sympathy that almost made me cry. Sometimes, she said, her voice gentle, when people stop letting others control them, those people panic. They'll do anything to get that control back. Her words landed with the weight of absolute truth. She had just described my entire life in one sentence. I nodded, unable to speak. You take care of yourself, she added. When the door shut and I was alone again, my hands were trembling, but it wasn't from fear. It was from pure, undiluted fury. My mother hadn't just crossed a line. She had taken a bulldozer and driven it straight through the entire concept of lines, then set the rubble on fire. This wasn't a family squabble anymore. This was war. And she had just shown me exactly how dirty she was willing to play. The fury I felt after the police left didn't burn out quickly. It settled into something colder and heavier, a lump of ice in the pit of my stomach. For the rest of that day, I paced my small apartment, the officer's words echoing in my head. Officer Reed's parting comment in particular played on a loop. Sometimes when people stop letting others control them, those people panic. They'll do anything to get that control back. My mother had panicked. Deleting her key and refusing to fund Ava's party had been my declaration of independence, and she had retaliated by trying to declare me mentally unstable. It was a vicious, calculated move, but as I thought about it more, it also felt desperate. Why such an extreme reaction to a simple no? The $1 transfer was insulting, sure, and changing the locks was a clear boundary, but calling the police felt like a disproportionate response. It felt like she was trying to create a massive distraction. But a distraction from what? The question gnawed at me through a sleepless night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying years of conversations in my head. My mother's relationship with money had always been creative. She saw financial rules as suggestions for other people. There was always a creative explanation for why the bills were late, always a justification for a purchase they couldn't afford. It was about maintaining the illusion, the perfect family picture for the neighbors and her Facebook friends. And Ava's Sweet 16 was meant to be her masterpiece. A lavish party wasn't just a party. It was a status symbol, a public declaration of their success and their devotion to their perfect younger daughter. When she texted me the demand for $2,100, she wasn't just asking for money. She was counting on it. She had probably already spent it, booking the venue, paying the caterer's deposit, buying the dress. My no wouldn't just have frustrated her. It would have created a real, logistical crisis. A crisis that would have publicly embarrassed her. "They'll do anything," Officer Reed had said. A cold dread washed over me. What was anything? The next morning, I woke up with a grim certainty. I sat down at my laptop, my coffee growing cold beside me. I navigated to the website that allows you to check your credit report for free. My heart was pounding, a slow, heavy drumbeat against my ribs. I typed in my name, my address, my social security number. The information felt intimate and vulnerable, and I suddenly felt sick knowing my mother had all of it. I had to answer a series of security questions to verify my identity. Which of the following streets have you previously lived on? Your 2018 Toyota Camry is associated with which of the following loan providers? The questions were a map of my responsible, carefully built life. A life my mother was about to blow up. The page loaded, a blue progress bar inching slowly across the screen. It felt like waiting for a verdict. Then the report appeared. I scrolled past my student loans and my one secured credit card I'd had since college, the one with a tiny $1,000 limit that I paid off every month. My credit score was good. I had worked hard for that number. It was my proof of reliability. Then I saw it. Under the revolving accounts section, there were two new entries. Capital One, opened April 2025. Discover, opened April 2025, April, last month. My blood ran cold. I hadn't opened any new accounts. I clicked on the Capital One entry. The balance was $1,250. The credit limit was $3,000. I clicked on the Discover card. The balance was $900. The credit limit was $2,500. A total of $2,250 charged in the last 3 weeks. The exact amount she'd asked for, plus a little extra. For a moment, everything went silent. The sounds of the city outside my window faded away. It was just me and the glowing screen. This had to be a mistake. A system error, a clerical mix-up. People's identities get stolen by strangers all the time. But deep down, I knew this wasn't a stranger. I scrolled down to the address listed on both new accounts. Willow Creek Lane, Littleton, Colorado. My parents' house. I felt a wave of nausea so strong I had to grip the edge of my desk. My own mother. My own mother had used my name, my social security number, my entire identity to open credit cards. The feeling was so much worse than just anger. It was a profound sense of violation. She hadn't just stolen my money. She had stolen my name. She had stolen the good credit I had worked so hard to build and used it as a blank check for her own selfish desires. My hands were shaking as I found the number for Capital One's fraud department. I dialed and the cheerful hold music felt like a cruel joke. Finally, a calm professional voice answered. Capital One Fraud Division, this is David. How can I help you? I explained the situation, my voice cracking at first before I forced it to become steady. I told him I was looking at my credit report and saw an account I had never opened. He asked for my social security number to verify my identity, and the irony was not lost on me. He put me on a brief hold. Okay, Miss Bennett, I have the account information here, he said when he returned. This was a joint application opened online on April 18th. A joint application? I asked, confused. With who? There was a slight hesitation on the other end of the line. A click of a keyboard. Miss Bennett, for security reasons, I can only verify information you provide. Can you tell me the name of the person you might have applied with? My throat was dry. I didn't apply with anyone. I think my identity was stolen. I understand, David said patiently. We can certainly open a fraud investigation, but the system shows the co-applicant is Linda M. Bennett. Is that a familiar name? The world tilted. Hearing a stranger say her name in this context made it brutally, undeniably real. That's my mother, I whispered. I see, David said, his voice softening with practiced sympathy. He had clearly had this kind of call before. And the charges appear to be for a venue rental in Littleton, a deposit for a catering company, and several online clothing retailers. Ava's birthday party. The whole thing, the Sweet 16 I had refused to fund had been charged to my name all along. The wellness check, the accusations of me being erratic, it was all a smokescreen. She was trying to discredit me before I could find out what she'd done. If I was unstable, who would believe me when I accused my own mother of felony identity theft? The pieces didn't just fit together. They slammed into place with the force of a car crash. I ended the call with David after starting the fraud claim, then did the same with Discover. My head was spinning. The betrayal was so deep, so absolute. It felt like it had no bottom. This wasn't just about money or a party. This was about a fundamental violation of trust, a level of deception I couldn't have imagined even from her. She hadn't just used me, she had consumed me. After the phone calls to the banks, the rage and the shock coalesced into a cold, hard resolve. There would be no screaming matches over the phone, no tearful, dramatic showdown in her perfectly decorated living room where she could control the narrative. I was done playing on her home field. This had to be done on my terms, in a neutral space, with undeniable facts, and with no room for her to twist the truth. This was no longer a family dispute. It was the discovery of a crime, and I was going to handle it like one. I spent the next hour preparing. I printed out the relevant pages from my credit report, highlighting the new accounts. I printed the statements for the 2 fraudulent cards, which the bank representatives had emailed to me. I used a red pen to circle the charges. The Gilded Ballroom rental, $800. Elegant Eats catering deposit, $500. The Princess Boutique, $350. It was a perfect ledger of my sister's party, paid for by my future. I placed the documents in a crisp manila folder. This was my evidence. Then I sent a text to the family group chat. It was the first time I had initiated contact since the $1 transfer. We need to talk. All of us. Meet me at the Black Bear Diner on Route 285 tomorrow at 11 a.m. It's important. The Black Bear Diner was a strategic choice. It was a loud, family-friendly place, always crowded, smelling of coffee and pancakes. It was public enough to prevent a major scene, and neutral enough that no one could claim home turf advantage. It was exactly halfway between my apartment in Denver and their house in Littleton. I was making them meet me in the middle, literally. My mom replied almost instantly, "What is this about, Sophia?" If it's about that dollar, it was very childish. I didn't take the bait. Tomorrow, 11 a.m. My dad texted me privately a few minutes later. "Is everything okay? Your mother is upset. That's why we need to talk," I replied. They arrived 10 minutes late, a classic power move. I was already seated in a booth in the back, a cup of black coffee in front of me. I watched them walk in. My mother, Linda, led the way, her shoulders back and her chin high, wearing a floral blouse that was her suburban armor. She was scanning the diner with a look of mild distaste, as if the place was beneath her. My dad, Mark, followed a few steps behind, his shoulders slumped, his eyes already searching for an exit. He looked tired, worn down by years of being my mother's silent accomplice. And then there was Ava, trailing behind them both, completely absorbed in her phone, her thumbs flying across the screen. She was wearing new, expensive-looking white sneakers. I wondered which one of my credit cards had paid for them. They slid into the booth opposite me. My dad gave me a weak, nervous smile. My mom placed her purse on the table with a decisive thud. Ava didn't even look up from her phone. A cheerful waitress appeared. "What can I get for you folks to drink?" "We're not eating," I said, my voice calm and level. "And we won't be long." The waitress gave a little nod and backed away. My mom's eyes narrowed. "Well, this is dramatic. What's so important that you had to drag us all the way out here, Sophia?" I didn't answer her directly. I reached down, pulled the manila folder from my bag, and slid it across the table. It landed in front of her with a soft whoosh. "Open it," I said. She glanced at my dad, then back at me, her expression a mixture of annoyance and curiosity. She flipped open the folder. I watched her face as she saw the first page, a copy of my credit report with the Capital One account highlighted. Her mask of indifference didn't slip, but I saw a tiny, almost imperceptible tightening around her mouth. She flipped to the next page, the credit card statement, and then the next. My dad leaned over to look, his brow furrowing in confusion. Ava, finally sensing the tension, put her phone down and peered at the documents. "What is this?" Ava asked. "It has your name on it." "Keep reading," I said. My eyes locked on my mother. I had arranged the papers in a specific order. The credit reports, then the statements showing the itemized charges for her party. The final documents were screenshots of the fraud alerts I had filed with both banks. When my mom got to the last page, she looked up at me. Her face was a blank wall. "I don't understand what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "I'm stating a fact. You used my social security number to open 2 credit cards in my name, and you used them to pay for Ava's birthday party." Ava's head snapped toward her mother. "Mom, is that true?" My mother waved a dismissive hand, the gesture infuriatingly familiar. Don't be ridiculous, Sophia. You're overreacting. I was helping you. Young people need to build their credit. I put my name on the account too. It was a family decision. The lie was so audacious, so shameless, that for a second I was speechless. Helping me? By forging my signature on a legal document? By maxing out cards in my name without my knowledge? That's not helping, Mom. That's a felony. Oh, don't use that word, she snapped, her voice rising. It's family. We take care of each other. After everything we've done for you, this is how you thank us? By being so ungrateful? We paid for your education. I paid for it, I cut in, my voice as sharp and cold as ice. The lie I had let slide for years was one I would not allow today. I paid for every single credit with my scholarship and the 2 jobs I worked. You didn't give me a dime. The color drained from her face. My dad finally spoke, his voice a low mumble. Sophia, let's not do this here. We can go home and sort this out. We'll pay you back. Privately. No, I said, looking directly at him, letting him feel the full weight of my disappointment. There is no sorting this out. There is no privately. It's too late for that. I turned my gaze back to my mother. The bank already knows. So does the credit bureau. I filed 2 official fraud investigations this morning. That was it. That was the moment. The mask didn't just slip, it shattered. For the first time in my entire life, I saw genuine, undiluted fear in my mother's eyes. Her arrogance, her defiance, her carefully constructed wall of maternal authority, it all dissolved in an instant. She looked smaller, older, and utterly terrified. The power dynamic in our family, a structure that had been fixed in place for 25 years, had just been permanently demolished on the sticky tabletop of a chain diner. Ava was staring at her, her mouth hanging open. Mom, what did you do? My mother just stared at me, her bravado gone, replaced by the panicked look of someone who had been caught. I gathered my purse and my phone. I left the folder on the table. It was her problem now. The fraud investigators will probably be in touch, I said as I slid out of the booth. I stood up and walked away without looking back. I could feel their eyes on me as I pushed open the heavy glass door and stepped out into the bright sunlight. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel happy. I just felt a profound and final sense of release. The fight was over because I had simply refused to play the game anymore. That night, a cool spring rain began to fall over Denver. I sat in my apartment, curled up on the couch with a blanket and a cup of tea. The rhythmic drumming of the rain on my window was a soothing sound. It felt like the city was being washed clean. Across town, in a rented ballroom in Littleton, my sister's party was just getting started. I knew this because a few of Ava's friends, whose social media accounts I hadn't blocked, had already started posting. I scrolled through the images with a strange sense of detachment. There was Ava, beaming in a pale pink dress that probably cost $500. There was the venue, the gilded ballroom, decorated with glittering gold and pink balloons. There was a massive tiered cake with Ava's Sweet 16, Born to Shine, written in elegant icing. My mother was in a few of the photos, smiling broadly, her arm around Ava, playing the role of the proud, doting mother. She looked happy, relaxed, as if our confrontation in the diner had never happened. Maybe she thought I was bluffing. Maybe she believed she could still talk her way out of it, that her charm and a few well-placed tears would make it all go away. She had underestimated me. She had mistaken my years of quiet compliance for weakness. I closed the app. I didn't feel anger or jealousy looking at the pictures. I just felt a deep, hollow sadness for the sister I never really had, and for the mother who was willing to commit a crime for the sake of appearances. I put my phone down and turned on a movie, trying to lose myself in someone else's story for a few hours. At 8:42 p.m., my phone rang. The caller ID was an unknown number with a Virginia area code. I hesitated, then answered. May I speak with Sophia Bennett? A man's voice asked. It was calm and professional. This is she. Miss Bennett? This is John Carlson from Capital One's Fraud Investigation Division. I'm just calling to provide you with an update on your case. I see here you had a conversation with your mother this morning regarding the unauthorized account. Yes? I did, I said, my stomach tightening. And she was not willing to resolve the matter with you directly? No, she was not. I see, he said. Well, the charges made to this account are significant, and one of the largest transactions was for the venue where an event is currently taking place. Given the active nature of the potential fraud, we are taking immediate steps to verify the transactions in person. You don't need to do anything, and you certainly don't need to attend. We just wanted to inform you that we are dispatching third-party verification officers, along with local law enforcement, to the event venue as a matter of procedure. My breath caught in my throat. You're sending people to the party? Tonight? Yes, ma'am. It's standard practice when fraud is actively occurring at a specific known location. They won't be making any arrests tonight. Their job is simply to document the situation, speak with the vendors, and confirm that the services paid for by the fraudulent account were rendered. It helps solidify the case. Again, you don't need to be involved. Have a good evening, Miss Bennett. He hung up. I sat in the silent apartment, the sound of the rain now seeming loud and ominous. I pictured the scene in my head, the flashing lights of a police car pulling up to the elegant entrance of the gilded ballroom, the uniformed officers and the men in suits walking past the balloon arches. I couldn't be there, but in my mind, I saw it all unfold. The DJ is playing a loud pop song. Ava is in the middle of the dance floor, laughing with her friends. My mother is over by the bar, chatting with other parents, basking in the glow of her successful event. Then the music falters. The manager of the ballroom is speaking to two serious-looking men in suits, pointing toward my mother. I imagined the officers approaching her table. One of them speaks, his voice not loud, but clear and authoritative enough to cut through the noise of the party. "Ma'am, are you Linda Bennett?" Heads turn. The music stops completely. The sudden silence is jarring. "Good evening. We're from Capital One's Verification Division. We're here to verify several transactions linked to this event. The primary credit applicant for these services is listed as Sophia Bennett, but the co-applicant and user of the card is a Linda Bennett, using her daughter Sophia's identity without authorization." The words hang in the air. A camera phone flashes somewhere in the crowd of teenagers. Guests start whispering. The word fraud travels through the room like a shockwave. I could see Ava, frozen mid-dance, her smile collapsing as she stares at her mother. I could see my mother's face, the confident hostess mask crumbling into panic as she tries to explain, to bluster her way through it. But her usual tactics wouldn't work on these men. They aren't family members she can guilt trip. They are professionals with a clear, simple task. "We're not arresting anyone tonight, ma'am," the officer's calm voice says, drowning out her protests. "We are simply documenting the fraudulent use of credit for prosecution. We'll need to speak with the caterer and the event manager." The DJ, unsure what to do, just stands there. The banner that reads "Ava's Sweet 16, Born to Shine" droops in the silent, fluorescent-lit room. The magic of the night is gone, replaced by a harsh, ugly reality. The party, my mother's monument to appearances, has just collapsed into a crime scene. Sitting on my couch miles away, I didn't feel a sense of victory or revenge. It was a somber, hollow feeling. This wasn't a celebration for me. It was a necessary, painful surgery to remove a sickness that had been poisoning my life for years. And tonight, the poison was finally being drained away. The 3 days following the party were eerily silent. I heard nothing from my family. Not an angry text, not a tearful voicemail, not a desperate plea. It was a thick, heavy silence, the kind that speaks louder than any words could. I didn't reach out either. I had said everything I needed to say in that diner. The rest was out of my hands. I spent those days in a strange state of limbo, waiting for the other shoe to drop while trying to live a normal life, applying for jobs, going for runs, meeting a friend for coffee. But underneath it all, there was a low hum of anxiety. I had set a fire, a necessary one, but I didn't know how far the flames would spread. The confirmation arrived on a Wednesday afternoon, not in a phone call, but in a sterile, formal email from John Carlson at Capital One's Fraud Division. The subject line was simple. "Regarding case 7432B. I opened it, my heart beating a little faster. The email was brief and to the point. "Dear Miss Bennett, this email is to inform you that the fraud investigation regarding the unauthorized account opened in your name has been resolved. The secondary applicant, Linda M. Bennett, was contacted and, upon being presented with the evidence, has admitted to the unauthorized use of your personal information to secure the line of credit. She has agreed to a repayment plan, and the account has been closed. As a result, the fraudulent account and all associated charges have been permanently removed from your credit file. This incident will have no negative impact on your credit score. The case is now considered closed by our division. We appreciate your cooperation in this matter." I read the email 3 times. Linda M. Bennett has admitted to the unauthorized use. There it was, in black and white. A legal confession? It wasn't the tearful, heartfelt apology a daughter might hope for, but in a way, it was better. It was an undeniable, documented admission of guilt. It was proof. Proof that I wasn't crazy or ungrateful or erratic. I was a victim of a crime, and the perpetrator was my own mother. The relief was immense. A deep exhale I felt like I'd been holding in for years. But there was no apology from the source. No call, no text. The silence from my family continued, but now I understood it for what it was: the silence of shame. In a small suburb like Littleton, gossip travels faster than the law. The story of the Sweet 16 party that was shut down by police and bank investigators became a local legend overnight. I didn't have to hear it directly to know it was happening. I got a call from my Aunt Carol, my mom's sister, a few days later. "Sophia, honey, what on earth is going on?" she asked, her voice a hushed whisper. "Your mother isn't answering her phone, and I heard the most insane story from Brenda at the church book club about Ava's party." I told her a simple, unadorned version of the truth. Mom opened credit cards in my name without my permission to pay for the party. I reported it. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Oh, honey," she finally said, her voice full of a pity I didn't want. "Oh, Linda, what was she thinking?" The fallout wasn't just social. My dad, I learned later from my aunt, had been quietly reprimanded at his accounting firm. Apparently, my mother had been having my financial mail, pre-approved credit card offers and the like, redirected to their address for months. My dad had been bringing it in, assuming it was junk mail. When the bank's investigation revealed this, his firm's compliance department had a serious talk with him about professional ethics and the handling of sensitive information. It didn't cost him his job, but it cost him his dignity. The biggest impact was on Ava. Her entire social life was built online. Her Instagram was a carefully curated highlight reel of a perfect, popular, privileged life. The day after the party, her account vanished. It was just gone. All the pictures, all the followers, all the comments, erased. Her friends, who had witnessed the humiliation firsthand, either dropped her or became sources for the gossip mill. For a 16-year-old girl, it was social death. I felt a pang of sadness for her. She was a pawn in my mother's game. A spoiled and often cruel one, but a pawn nonetheless. My mother's desperate need to give her a perfect party had ended up destroying the very world she was trying to build for her and me. I watched the chaos from a distance. The anger I had felt was gone, burned away by the confrontation and the confirmation. In its place was a quiet, sad finality. I was just done. Done with the drama, done with the manipulation, done with the endless cycle of hope and disappointment. It was like watching a building I had spent my whole life trying to repair finally collapse. I didn't celebrate its destruction. I just accepted it, and for the first time I felt free to walk away from the wreckage and build something new, somewhere else. Months later, autumn settled over Denver. The blistering heat of summer gave way to crisp, cool air, and the aspen trees in the mountains began their spectacular transformation into rivers of gold. The change of seasons felt like a reflection of the change within me. The fiery anger and stormy confrontations of the spring had passed, leaving behind a quiet, peaceful landscape. I got a new job, a great one, as a data analyst for an environmental consulting firm. The work was challenging and meaningful, and my colleagues were kind, smart people who knew me only as Sophia, the new analyst who was good with spreadsheets. They knew nothing of my family, of the drama, of the person I used to be. It was a fresh start in the truest sense of the word. I made new friends. We went hiking on the weekends, explored farmers markets, and had quiet nights in with cheap wine and old movies. It was a simple, uncomplicated happiness I had never known before. My apartment, once just a place to sleep, now felt like a true home, a sanctuary. One evening, I was cleaning up and paused in front of a small section of wall in my living room. On it hung 3 framed items. In the center was my master's diploma. It no longer looked like a worthless piece of paper. It looked like what it was: proof of my hard work, my resilience, my intelligence. It was a monument to my own effort, paid for by my own exhaustion. To its left was a small, simple frame holding the locksmith's receipt from the day I changed my digital locks. It was dated the day after the text message. It was proof of protection, the first real boundary I had ever built for myself. It was the physical manifestation of the word no. And to the right was a copy of the bank's confirmation letter, the one that declared the fraud case closed and my credit file cleared. It was proof of peace. It was the official end of the story, the legal document that validated my truth and released me from a lifetime of financial and emotional obligation. Together, they told my story, not the one my mother would have written, but my own. Proof of effort, proof of protection, proof of peace. I never saw my parents or my sister again. My dad sent a short, stilted email on my birthday 2 months later. "Hope you have a good day. Love, Dad." I didn't reply. My aunt told me they had to sell the house in Littleton to pay back the debt my mother had accumulated, not just on my cards, but on others. They were living in a small rental apartment across town. Ava was finishing high school online. The perfect family picture had been shattered for good. I don't hate them. I don't wish them ill, I just don't think of them much anymore. They are figures from a past life, a story about a different person. The anger is gone, and what's left is a quiet, peaceful silence. Sometimes victory doesn't look like a loud, triumphant explosion. It doesn't look like applause or a dramatic apology. Sometimes victory is the quiet click of a lock. It's the silence on your phone. It's the calm in your own home. It's the sound of your own peace. And when people try to call you selfish or dramatic for choosing that peace, remember this: the ones who benefit most from your silence, your compliance, and your lack of boundaries will always be the first to call your freedom a betrayal. If you've ever had to change your locks, literally or metaphorically, to find your freedom, hit subscribe and tell me where you're watching from, because peace isn't given, it's built. One boundary, one no, one locked door at a time.